Hello children, I hope you all are doing fine. I welcome you all to our special English hour. Here we learn lots of new things, and while learning these new things, we also have lots of fun. Are you ready for some fun? Let's get started. Children, you all know that we always start our day with something fun and interesting. So today I have a tongue twister for you. Are you ready for the tongue twister? The tongue twister is two tried and true tridents. I will repeat, two tried and true tridents. Now, I would like to say this a little faster. Will you say it with me? Come on. Two tried and true tridents. Two tried and true tridents. True tried. Oops. I was not able to say it correctly. Were you? Try saying this faster with your friends and try saying this faster at least 3 times. Children, you all know that it is very important for us to learn new words because when we learn new words, we are able to learn a language better. So now let's learn some new words. We will come across these words in the poem when we read it. So I request you to please make a note of these words in your notebooks. Corpse, corpse, corpse. The cops in the town were very honest. Frail, frail, frail. The flowers had become frail. Handcuffs, handcuffs, handcuffs. The criminals were tied with handcuffs. Private, private, private. They were having a private conversation. Politely, politely, politely. The nurse was talking to the patients politely. Children, before we read the poem, I have a question for you. Can you tell me what do you do when someone tells you to not do it? For example, you might be walking on the street and your friend might tell you, don't touch that pole. But in this circumstances, what would you do? You would go and touch that pole, isn't it? We all tend to do this. Whenever we are told to not do something, we always end up doing that thing. जब हमें कोई ये कहता है कि कोई चीज ना करो, तब हम वही चीज करते हैं, right? This is human tendency, and this is true right from children to adults. We are very curious souls, and especially it stands true when we are told to not do something. We want to find out what is the reason or what would happen if we do it. So, in this poem, the writer or the poet is asking us to not read this poem, but we are going to read it. Usually, all the writers or authors want us to read their work, right? Whenever we watch any advertisement on television, don't we feel like buying that product? Just like that, all writers and authors want us to read their artwork. But this writer or poet is asking us to not read his poem. The name of this poet is Ken Nesbitt. He always writes poems about kids and their thoughts. हम कोई भी कविता या कोई भी किताब जब पढ़ते हैं तो उनके लेखक ये चाहते हैं कि हम उनके लिटरेचर को अप्रिशिएट करें, लेकिन इस कविता के जो लेखक है वो ये चाहते हैं कि हम ये पोयम ना पढ़ें. Let's find out why is he asking us to not read this poem. Please open page number 74 of your textbook. I will be reading this poem and I request you to point at the words as I read them. And if you don't have a textbook, listen to me carefully. अब मैं ये कविता आपके साथ पढ़ूंगी. मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप अपने टेक्स्ट बुक में शब्दों पे पॉइंट करें, जैसे हमने कुछ देर पहले देखा. और अगर आपके पास टेक्स्ट बुक ना हो तो आप मुझे ध्यान से सुनिए. Please don't read this poem. It's only meant for me. That's it. Just move along now. There's nothing here to see. Besides, I'm sure you'd rather just go outside and play. So put the poem down now and slowly back away. In these stanzas, the poet is asking us to not to read this poem. He hasn't mentioned the reason as to why. He is just saying that there is nothing for us to see in this poem. When someone says that you should not do this or you should not see this, you would want to see it, right? So, the poet is using a tactic here. He wants us to read this poem, but he is using a language which says that he doesn't want us to read it. But the language that he is using will make us read it. इस स्टैंजा में हमने देखा कि कवि ये कह रहे हैं कि हमें ये कविता नहीं पढ़नी चाहिए, लेकिन जिस भाषा का वो उपयोग कर रहे हैं उस वजह से हम ये कविता पढ़ना चाहते हैं. Hey, why are you still reading? That isn't very nice. I've asked you once politely. Don't make me ask you twice. I'm telling you, it's private. Do not read one more line. Hey, that's one more. Now stop it. This isn't yours. It's mine. In these stanzas, the poet is again using colorful and funny language which makes us want to read the poem. He says that this is private and we should not read it. Now, we all know that some things are private and we should respect everyone's privacy. But some people don't do it, which is why the poet is using this kind of language so that we read the poem further. इन स्टैंजास में भी कवि हमें ये कह रहे हैं कि ये कविता हमें आगे नहीं पढ़नी चाहिए क्योंकि इन लाइंस में कुछ प्राइवेट बातें बताई गई है। लेकिन कवि ये जो कलरफुल लैंग्वेज यूज कर रहे हैं उस वजह से हम आगे कविता पढ़ रहे हैं। You are not allowed to read this. You really have to stop. If you don't quit this instant, I swear I'll call a cop. He'll drag you off in handcuffs. He'll lock you up in jail and leave you there forever until you are old and frail. You will see in younger children when they are told that you should not do this. They will definitely do that thing. For example, when I was a child, my mother used to tell me many things that I am not supposed to jump on the bed or I am not supposed to touch the hot plate. But I used to never listen to her and I learnt my lessons. Once I fell off the bed. So, this is the exact tactic that the poet is also using here. He is telling us things like we should not be reading this poem. He is also scaring us by saying that he would call the cops and the cops will take us away. Now, when someone tells us things like these, we will definitely read the poem, which is why again the poet is using such language. Your friends will all forget you. You won't be even missed. Your family too will likely forget that you exist. And all because you read this instead of having fun. It's too late now, amigo. The poem's nearly done. There's only one solution. Here's what you'll have to do. Tell all your friends and family they shouldn't read it too. In the last three stanzas, we see that the poet is slightly changing his language. Instead of asking us to stop reading the poem, he is telling us what would happen if we read this poem. He tells us things like our family members will not talk to us or our friends will never meet us. But in the end, he says that now that we have read this poem, we should also ask our parents and friends to read this poem. Children, wasn't it a fun poem? It was something different than we usually read or see. It was fun to read this poem. Now it's time for activities. Let's start. Children, let's start with the first activity of this session. This activity is very easy. On your screens, you will see an image of the poem and you have to find out the rhyming words from the poem. आपको आपके स्क्रीन पे पोएम दिखाई देगी और आपको पोएम से राइमिंग वर्ड्स ढूंढने हैं. For example, in the first stanza, the rhyming words are me and see. So just like that, we have to find out the rest of the rhyming words from the poem. Sounds easy? Let's give it a try. Children, were you able to find the rhyming words from the poem? Let's have a look. The first pair is play and away. The second pair is nice and twice. The third pair is line and mine. The fourth pair is stop and cop. The fifth pair is fun and done. The last pair is do and to. I hope you were able to find the rhyming words from the poem. Children, now let's do the second activity of this session. For this activity, you will see a few sentences on your screens. What you need to do is read these sentences and figure out whether they are right or wrong. If these sentences are right, you have to give a reason as to why are they right. And if they are wrong, you have to give a reason as to why are they wrong. अब हम एक एक्टिविटी करेंगे. इस एक्टिविटी में आपके स्क्रीन्स पे आपको कुछ सेंटेंसेस दिखाई देंगे. आपको ये सेंटेंसेस पढ़ने हैं और ये फिगर आउट करना है कि ये सेंटेंस सही है या गलत है. अगर वो सेंटेंस सही है तो आपको उसके पीछे का रीजन लिखना है कि ये सेंटेंस क्यों सही है. और अगर वो सेंटेंस गलत है तो आपको उसके पीछे का रीजन लिखना है कि ये सेंटेंस क्यों गलत है. Sounds easy? Let's give it a try. Children, were you able to solve this activity? Let's have a look. The first statement was reading someone else's letter. This is wrong. And why is it wrong? Because We must not see or use others' belongings without their permissions. अगर हम किसी और का लेटर पढ़ते हैं तो वो गलत है क्योंकि वो किसी की प्राइवेट चीज है और हमें उनकी परमिशन लिए बिना ये चीज नहीं करनी चाहिए. Now, let's have a look at the second statement. It says, reading someone else's diary. This is also wrong because we should respect other person's privacy. अगर हम किसी की डायरी पढ़ते हैं तो ये चीज बहुत गलत है क्योंकि हम डायरी में हमारी प्राइवेट चीजें लिखते हैं, इसीलिए किसी और की डायरी पढ़ना गलत है. Looking at the keyboard when someone is typing a password. This is wrong. Password is a secret code of the person and we should try not to know it. अगर हम किसी का पासवर्ड देखते हैं तो वो बहुत गलत बात है क्योंकि पासवर्ड एक सीक्रेट कोड होता है और हमें वो कभी नहीं देखना चाहिए. Now, let's move to the fourth statement. Listening to other people's conversations without their knowledge. This is also wrong because we should always mind our own business and not interfere in others' work. अगर हम किसी और की बात सुनते हैं तो ये बहुत गलत बात है. हमें अपना काम करना चाहिए और दूसरों के काम में इंटरफियर नहीं करना चाहिए. Now, let's have a look at the last statement. Trying to get someone's address, phone number, email ID without their knowledge. This is very, very, very wrong. We should be a well-mannered person and we should never do this because it is also considered as stalking. हमें किसी के भी परमिशन के बिना ये चीज नहीं करनी चाहिए क्योंकि इसे स्टॉकिंग माना जाता है और अगर कोई ये चीज करता है तो उसे एक वेल मैनर्ड इंसान नहीं माना जाता. Children, I hope that you were able to give these answers and also were able to give the reasons behind these answers. Children, I hope you had fun in today's session. We learned a lot of new things today. So now I will see you in our next session. Until then, take care and stay safe. Bye.